Let me ask you a question. If you were to lose your job today, what would you do? You go apply for another job, more than likely. Will it be in the same industry? Maybe a rival company? It's hard for us to say. I used to work in marketing. I used to do copywriting and editing and then some graphic design work. I've had contracts with Sony and some very large companies at times. But with where AI is now, those jobs are going away very, very soon. AI is only going to get better at what it does. I want to take a moment to address a little bit of a thought that I've been having lately because it seems like none of this is guaranteed, right? It's important for you to do something for yourself and gain stability from whatever it is that you're doing outside of your day job. Now, let me see if I can kind of order my thoughts here. We need to stop simping for companies, okay? So whether you are the type of person that practices some overwhelming fundamental brand loyalty, maybe you continuously buy iPhones, for instance, because you couldn't imagine moving off of that ecosystem. Maybe you are a gamer and you play PlayStation over Xbox because the Xbox sucks and my plastic box is better than your plastic box. It doesn't matter. Blindly following the consumerist mindset is only ever going to lead to what's the term that they coined? Encrapification or a degradation in the service that you have supported up to a certain point. And there's countless examples of this that I can name. Netflix is one of the ones that kind of comes to mind immediately, where it was the king of content for a long time, encouraging people to cut the cable, and then other services and competitors popped up, leading to us not necessarily getting all the shows in one place. Then you have to pay for multiple. Now all the streaming services cost more than cable. And you practice that brand loyalty to Netflix for what? You should only ever use this service for what it's intended to be used for. You stream the shows that you want to watch, cancel it when there's no shows you don't want to watch. You can see their entire catalog. But I specifically want to talk about how people practice this overwhelming loyalty for a company that they work for. Corporate simping is what I want to call it. And typically you see that people who are the biggest corporate simps are people who are essentially agents of the state. These are middle managers who just with the slightest bit of power, they let it go to their head and maybe they weren't cut in the recent layoffs or the recent round of layoffs, and now they think that they're special somehow. Let me get something explained to you, and I hope it's very clear. For a majority of these companies out here, you are nothing but a number. You are an equation to these people, a ratio of what you produce versus how much you cost. The moment that that ratio is no longer in balance, typically 2 to 1, sometimes it's even 3 to 1, being for every dollar they pay you, you must bring them $2 in value, or for every dollar they pay you, you must bring them $3 in value. Some ratios are crazy, but these are the most common ratios that we see. And the larger the machine, the smaller cog you are in the machine, meaning you are that much more easily replaceable. If you're a big cog, then maybe you're not so easily replaceable, and maybe some amount of simping maybe even be slightly forgivable. But you should not simp for these companies, especially your job, because the moment that your ratio is 1 to 1, for every dollar of value you bring them, they pay you a dollar of value. Well, you're now insolvent and you become replaceable. There's so many thoughts on my mind when it comes to that. I could share with you guys about the times I've been fired before, but there's no use in that right now. I could talk about how AI is going to come and replace a lot of our jobs. I've heard the horror stories going around YouTube, how people are losing their jobs to AI. And that's because your time has come. Eventually, many of us will lose our purpose. We will lose our jobs. Maybe to the robots, maybe to AI, maybe to illegal immigration. No matter what it is, eventually your ratio, the number will come. And this is not to be some doom and gloom. Maybe there's specialties out there that have more resilience than others and staying power. That of like lawyers, for instance, because you can kind of argue with nuance in a court of law. But for the vast majority of us, even if you work with your hands, eventually a time will come. Now, if you have a very dexterous job where you work with your hands and requires fine hand movements or fine movements, yeah, you're less likely to be replaced very soon. But they're coming. And it's important for you to understand your role and how you fit into that machine and the importance of finding a way to make sure you still can maintain enough income to keep a roof over your head and keep your belly full. However, these people at the top, they don't care about any of that. They don't care that you're just fighting to survive out here. Let me ask you a question. If you were to lose your job today, what would you do? You go apply for another job, more than likely. Will it be in the same industry? Maybe a rival company? It's hard for us to say. Excuse me. Keeping that notion in mind, you must always be ready, able, and willing to jump ship because you simp for a company and the company won't simp for you in return. Now, I use that word simp because there's no other way to kind of explain with the same amount of emotion. There are going to be some of you who take this as a derogatory term, and maybe it is, but let me see if I can explain. Simping, or to be a simp, is where an uneven exchange of value and care is in a state of imbalance. For instance, if you were to simp for a partner, maybe you care about that partner more than they care about you. You tell them how much you love them. You're always there for them, always giving 100% of everything you can to this person. And in return, they give you nothing. That would be simping. If you care about a company so much that you are not seeing your children's birthday parties or their baseball games, or you are staying late or coming in early, where they wouldn't do that for you, well, then that would be simping. You have to understand that these companies only value the ratio. There's numbers on the board and you are nothing but a number to them. Not to say that that means that, there's no point in working. Obviously, we need to work to survive and we need to contribute something to society in order to get some value back. So this is not an attack on jobs. However, you have to find a way to be able to support yourself independent of the system that has been so ingrained in our minds. Maybe you knit, right? This is a pretty poor example. But if you knit and you're a pretty decent knitter, maybe it would be high time for you to find people who want to purchase your wares independent of a job, independent of where you work. I mean, maybe you're a video editor. Maybe you have a golden voice and want to contribute your voice to some type of cause. It wouldn't be a bad idea to start a radio show or a podcast. Maybe you edit videos. Well, there's an entire ecosystem of people out there who need editors, and maybe showing some of your skills could be a way to secure some additional funding. I am not here to just promote doom and gloom. I just want you to be aware of the factors that are out of your control sometimes. I mentioned middle managers before. These are sometimes the biggest corporate sims. You see them on LinkedIn all the time posting things about family and culture. And I don't mean their family, I mean their corporate family. It's kind of sad, cringe in a lot of ways, but kind of sad that they tend to think that these companies would care. If I died today, my bay would be filled within a week at my job. If you died, would anyone at your job care? Would they truly? Would everything come to a halt because you're no longer there? I doubt it. Most of us, at least. Most of us are not business owners. Most of us aren't CEOs. So it's important for you to understand just where you fit in and that simping for a company will get you nowhere, either on the consumer side as a customer or on the producer side as an employee. Which leads me to think of another thought about how the term or our relationship with work even started. Because back in the day, most people were artisans of a trade. Maybe you were a cobbler or a blacksmith. where you inherited that skill from your parents. That was your education, and you worked for yourself. And as a result, during downturns in the economy, things were kind of rough for you. Well, we invented this, what we would think is more stable through employment, which I think really started originating during the Industrial Revolution, where maybe throughout small downturns, maybe a little slowdown in demand, you didn't immediately lose your job. But if there's going to be a prolonged period of time where there's stagnation or where maybe the orders are slowed down, you best believe that there will be cuts. A company has to maintain itself. They have to put the company's survival at the forefront of its priorities. If money's no longer coming in, well, they can't keep the lights on and they need to make cuts. And the biggest way they can make cuts is through labor. Without being overly preachy, this is why it's important for you to understand your role at your company, understand exactly where you fit in, and exactly what type of value you bring to the table. By balancing those things, you can not only help hedge yourself against layoffs, but you can also put yourself in a position where you can easily roll into a new role. You can easily move into a new role, even if it's at a different industry. On the consumer side, where I mentioned encrapification, the actual term that was coined was enshittification, where they take the base of their sales and through investments make a worse product. That's because eventually there's no other place to go. As far as a company can only rise to be so large and it can only occupy so much of the market. And the best way for them to create more value without doing mass layoffs would then be to give you a lesser product for the same price. Crunchyroll did this. Um, Disney Plus is currently doing this by putting ads on a premium tier that you've already paid for with no ads. I mean, I can't think of a single tech company that hasn't done this. Car companies do it all the time, where they have all these great features that they did the research and development for, put it on pretty much all their models, and then try to sell it back to you at a later date, such as BMW. They did this by putting the heated seats in a car in their subscription service. That is in no way of service to the end consumer. It's only a means for them to make more money. Oh, there's just so much on my mind. I think that hard, harder times are coming. There's been people being deported out of the country. And while that may be good for the jobs market in the temporary, actually no. Let me rephrase that. It's good for the job market overall in the short term and the long term because we're where there are some forces of labor that don't have as high skill, those jobs are now available for Americans. However, that cuts as a two-edged sword. Because Americans require more money, there's going to be mass automation. It's coming, and it's important and imperative rather that you take this opportunity to not only educate yourself but invest in yourself and grow your skills. This is why I'm here. This is why you guys see me in my blue collar jacket covered in Bondo dust. This is why I record in my car, is because most days I'm working, and most days I am trying to grow that skill because I just want to be able to last at least another 10, maybe even 12 years in this industry that I knew was coming. I used to work in marketing. I used to do copywriting and editing and then some graphic design work. I've had contracts with Sony and some very large companies at times. But with where AI is now, those jobs are going away very, very soon. AI is only going to get better at what it does. I saw the writing on the wall way back in, I think it was late 2020. And so I decided to jump ship. But for these low skill jobs, it's coming there too. They have robots now that can flip patties and fry, and deep fry French fries and chicken nuggets. I mean, those jobs are going away. And no one seems to care about having the human element anymore when it comes to service. I mean, it's not as if the human element makes a difference anyway. I've never gotten more service at fast food restaurants until post COVID. Store hours aren't the way that they used to be, where they used to be open. We used to have 24-hour Walmarts and late night, 4 a.m. runs to Taco Bell, and that just seems to have all been gone. And for what? Crappier service? I mean, they're paid higher than ever before, right? On paper. Like the actual dollar amount went up, but the actual value that these people receive for their job is minuscule because of inflation. Those jobs are going away. Will it improve fast food? Probably not, because the food's poison. But think about it. Now that a lot of these businesses, there was someone in New York, Cash Jordan, I think the channel is, I can't remember his name, forgive me, where he posted that after the mass deportations that have been happening. Now, mind you, the numbers aren't nearly what the target are to get to the deportation numbers, but because of the fear that's being spread around through the deportation efforts, so many people aren't even coming out of their house anymore. If you're undocumented, they're not even coming out of the house anymore in places like New York because they're afraid that ICE might sweep them up. I don't think that's going to happen. And maybe this is a good time for me to say I am heavily in support of legal immigration. I don't want massive amounts of undocumented migrants coming over here to serve as a serf class. That's terrible. And it gives companies way too much leverage on labor. But back to what I was saying. In New York, according to this YouTuber, um, companies had to start hiring Americans again. They had to start hiring actual W-2 employees again because they could no longer pay a lower wage under the table to people who were living 4, 5, 6, 7 people to one bedroom house. And I've seen it. Okay, like don't argue with me on this one. I've seen it. I've seen Chinese migrants. I've seen Hispanic migrants come over and they live in a 2 or 3 bedroom house or apartment with 12 people. Some of them aren't related. It's not just mom, dad, and a bunch of kids. No, like these are all working age adults, some women, some men, and they all live together because it's what makes sense in order for them to be able to practice their to be able to work and to be able to send money back to their home country. That's the only way that they're able to afford it. And then you wonder about housing shortage. I mean, God, there's a housing shortage because not only are they not building houses because there are people atop the high towers behind Golden Gates that don't want people to build starter homes next to their McMansions. That's one aspect. But the other aspect is that there's just not enough houses to go around when you import the third world into this country for no other reason than to devalue what we already have here and to create cheap labor. I mean, I remember Bernie Sanders used to stand for that. He used to say, open borders is a Koch brothers idea. Like basically what he's saying is he didn't want the Koch brothers, Coca-Cola brothers, to import massive amounts of labor to then devalue the labor of Americans. The same thing happened when women entered the workforce, and I'm not against women working, but you essentially doubled the labor force overnight and wages stagnated. That's what happens. When you have less people available for the jobs, then jobs had to compete dollar for dollar with each other in order to attract employees. That's just how it works, guys. I've seen that in real time too. I worked for a company that was doing online retail, and we had a warehouse. And because the incentive to stay home during COVID was so high, he went from paying his state's minimum wage. This was in New Jersey. He went from paying that state's minimum wage, which was, I think, was somewhere around $12 an hour at the time. It could have been a little bit lower for a warehouse worker to now paying well over $22 an hour, which is way higher than the state's minimum wage because that was the wage that got people to actually apply for the job. It happens in real time. You have to incentivize people to work for you. But don't let your moderately high salary or your track record of working for a company or the great company culture. What is company culture anyway? Don't let those things distract you from the truth. The truth of the matter is that as it pertains to businesses, they have to run at a ratio that produces them profit. Simping for a company will only lead to heartbreak. No one's going to care about you more than you care about you. Maybe your family cares about you, I can't speak for everybody. I know mine cares about me, and maybe you care about yours. You care about your children. But it's important to know that the moment that you personally start putting your feelings into a job or a company, a representative of who signs the checks essentially, then you're on the path to lose. You have to hedge yourself against the coming doom. I mean, we've already been through economic hardship. It's only going to get worse before it gets any better. Imagine now you have all these people who are losing their jobs in the public sector are now going to have to probably move to the private sector, which only increases competition for some of these cushier jobs with air conditioning. We can sit down at a desk and type away. And these people have degrees. What are you going to do then? Keep that in mind moving forward. I think that's it from today's video. Maybe I'll end it on a positive note. But if you take the time to invest in yourself, you take the time to improve your skills, and you look outside of the traditional 9 to 5 structure, you can succeed. You can do it. But it's going to take the willingness to do things that other people are unwilling to do. Maybe there's a job out there that is manual labor, but other people just aren't willing to do it. That could be your way in. I know in my industry, auto body, younger people aren't really looking for this type of work. So as a result, there was an opportunity there for myself to kind of come in. I'm not saying my job is fireproof. If I'm not fireproof, I can be fired today. I could lose my job today. But I have a plan, and I have a backup plan, and I have other skills that I'm willing to lean on if that comes. You need to make sure you have the same. And if you're a low skill worker, acquire a high value skill of some sort. Maybe it could be programming, maybe it's woodworking, carpentry, same thing. It could be motherboard repair, even. It's a higher value skill that will be here in demand for a bit longer. If you are a white collar worker, obviously credentialism is a thing there, and I don't necessarily believe in that. But you have to understand how to sell yourself, or maybe even go into sales. People always need salespeople, and I'm not advocating for it because I know that those jobs can be grueling. But just don't be so closed-minded that you shut yourself off from opportunities because it can hurt you. I've been there. Keep a positive mindset. Don't shut yourself out from opportunities and always invest in yourself. I think that's it for today's message. I appreciate you guys so much. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you guys are new here, subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate every single one of you. Share this video with someone who may have some fears about the future. It's going to be for all of us eventually, okay? And I don't think UBI is the answer. We're going to have to figure out something. Maybe I'll touch on that later. I appreciate you guys so much. And as always, take care of yourself and take care of each other.